35 years ago, the United States military achieved something that many military experts at the time considered to be absolutely impossible. In just 38 days, they completely annihilated one of the largest air defense networks in the world without losing a single bomber. And right now, as negotiations between Washington and Tehran reach a critical breaking point, the Pentagon is dusting off that playbook. Today, we are going to break down exactly how the Desert Storm blueprint would work against the modern and sophisticated defenses of Iran. We will explore why Iran's upgraded systems might actually make them more vulnerable, and what the Navy is doing to prepare now. Modern conflict never comes down to strength alone, because success depends on planning, coordination, and the ability to adapt very quickly. To understand why military planners are looking at Desert Storm as a template for Iran, you must first understand that operations scale. In August 1990, Saddam Hussein's Iraq had the fourth largest army in the world, with over 1 million soldiers and many tanks. Crucially, they possessed one of the most sophisticated air defense networks outside of the Soviet Union, featuring integrated command and control systems. The Iraqis had French-made Roland missiles, Soviet SA-2s, SA-3s, SA-6s, and SA-8s, along with thousands of dangerous and modern anti-aircraft guns. This network was modeled after the Soviet Union's own air defense doctrine, making it a formidable challenge for any attacking air force. Military analysts at the time estimated that an air campaign against Iraq would result in the loss of hundreds of coalition aircraft. They were catastrophically wrong, as the opening moments of the war proved that technology and strategy could overcome even the densest defenses. At 2:38 a.m. on January 17, 1991, 8 F-117 Nighthawk stealth bombers crossed silently into Iraqi airspace to begin the primary mission. These aircraft were completely invisible to Iraqi radar, allowing them to penetrate deep into the heart of the enemy's most protected territory. Their mission was to take out Iraq's command and control centers during the first 30 minutes of the most intense aerial war. Those 8 aircraft dropped precision-guided bombs on the Iraqi Air Force headquarters, the main telephone exchange, and many critical radar installations. Within minutes, Iraq's air defense network was blind and deaf, leaving the generals unable to communicate with their various missile batteries. The radar operators could not warn the interceptors, and the entire integrated system collapsed under the weight of the initial surgical strikes. Here is where it gets interesting for Iran, because their leadership knows exactly what happened to Iraq during that devastating conflict. They have spent the last 3 decades building what they believe is an impenetrable air defense shield to protect their sovereign territory. We must examine the specific components of the shield to understand the modern challenges that American naval forces would likely face. This defensive web is composed of several layers that are designed to detect and engage targets at many different ranges and altitudes. When we look back at the sheer scale of the Iraqi military in 1991, the numbers are truly staggering and terrifying. Saddam Hussein had transformed his nation into a fortress, boasting over 5,000 tanks and an immense force of regular soldiers. These troops were not just numerous, they were battle-hardened from a decade of brutal and bloody warfare against the neighboring Iranians. The Iraqi Air Force was also a significant threat, equipped with modern Soviet MiG-29s and French Mirage F-1 fighter jets alike. However, the real backbone of their defensive strategy was the integrated Kari system, which linked every radar and missile battery together. This system was designed to provide a comprehensive picture of the sky, allowing commanders to direct their fire with deadly precision. Western military analysts were genuinely afraid that the coalition forces would suffer thousands of casualties during the initial phases of combat. They believed that the Iraqi anti-aircraft fire would be so thick that no aircraft could possibly survive the dangerous low-level missions. The night of January 17th changed everything, as the world witnessed a display of technological superiority never seen before in history. While the F-117s were striking from above, Tomahawk cruise missiles were launched from ships in the Persian Gulf and Red Sea. These missiles followed complex flight paths, hugging the terrain to avoid detection before slamming into their pre-programmed targets with incredible accuracy. The Iraqi operators were confused because they saw nothing on their radar screens until the very moment the explosions rocked their bases. Within the first hour, the entire command structure of the Iraqi military was fractured and unable to coordinate any effective defense. The Kari system, which was supposed to be their ultimate shield, became a useless collection of wires and broken computer monitors. This historical moment serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly a massive military can be neutralized by a smarter opponent. Iran has studied these events very closely, trying to find ways to prevent a similar fate from befalling their own forces. They have invested billions of dollars into mobile systems, believing that mobility will save them from the precision of American bombs. Yet, the fundamental lessons of Desert Storm suggest that even the most mobile units are vulnerable if they lose their communication. Without a central nervous system to guide them, these advanced weapons are like blind giants, wandering aimlessly in a modern battlefield. We must consider how the U.S. Navy plans to exploit these same structural weaknesses in the event of a future conflict. The ghost of 1991 still haunts the corridors of power in Tehran, shaping every single decision their military commanders make today. They know that being the fourth largest army in the world did not save Iraq from a total and humiliating defeat. Now, as we look toward the current tensions, we can see the same patterns of overconfidence and hidden technical vulnerabilities emerging. The blueprint for victory was written in the desert sands 35 years ago, and it is being refined for the present. Every sensor and every missile in Iran's arsenal is now being weighed against the proven tactics of the United States military. Let us take a deep dive into the impressive and highly layered air defense systems that Iran currently possesses today. Iran's leadership has spent billions of dollars to ensure that their most critical military and nuclear facilities remain heavily protected. At the very top of their long-range defensive capabilities is the Russian-made S-300 PMU-2, which they finally received in 2016. These sophisticated missile systems can engage multiple targets simultaneously, up to 200 kilometers away, and at extremely high altitudes. Then there is the Bavar 373, which is the absolute pride of the Iranian domestic defense industry and military establishment. Iranian officials claim that this homegrown system actually rivals the capabilities of the famous Russian S-400 long-range missile platform. It uses advanced phased array radar, which can track up to 200 different targets simultaneously across a wide battle space. The system carries the powerful Sayad-4 missile, which has a reported range of 300 kilometers for hitting high-altitude targets. Moving to the medium-range layer, we find the Khordad systems, which have already proven their lethal effectiveness in real-world combat. These are the exact systems that famously shot down a $180 million American RQ-4A Global Hawk drone in 2019. That single event proved to the world that Iran's radar operators are well-trained and capable of hitting high-flying targets accurately. In the short-range category, Iran relies on Chinese and Russian systems, like the Tor M1 and the highly mobile Pantsir S1 units. These units provide a final shield against low-flying cruise missiles and precision bombs that might leak through the outer defenses. A vast web of anti-aircraft artillery also covers every critical facility, creating a literal wall of fire in the sky. All of these different layers are intended to work together to create a seamless and impenetrable zone of absolute denial. The Iranian military commanders believe that this dense concentration of firepower will deter any nation from attempting a preemptive strike. They have studied the American air campaigns of the past and believe their new technology can finally change the outcome. However, having the best hardware is only one part of the equation when facing the most advanced navy in history. We must ask if these systems can truly communicate effectively when their command centers are being hammered by heavy jamming. The complexity of managing so many different types of equipment from various countries could also lead to massive technical confusion. If one part of the shield fails, the entire structure may become vulnerable to the precision of modern American weapons. This brings us to the ultimate question of whether Iran's wall of fire is a solid barrier or just an illusion. To understand the potential outcome, we must look closer at the fatal flaw that resides within their integrated network. As we explore the next chapter, the similarities between modern Iran and 1991 Iraq will become even more strikingly clear. Iraq's air defense networks failed because once you cut the head off the snake, every single individual missile battery becomes an isolated island. They could not coordinate their actions, they could not share targeting data, and they definitely could not mask their defensive fires effectively. Despite all of Iran's significant technological upgrades, intelligence analysts firmly believe they currently possess the exact same fatal and structural weakness. Modern air defense depends entirely on the flow of information between radar stations, command bunkers, and the active missile launching platforms. If this information flow is interrupted, the most advanced missile in the world becomes nothing more than a very expensive lawn ornament. This strategy of decapitation is designed to paralyze the enemy's decision-making process before they even realize a full-scale war has begun. When the central command loses its sight, the soldiers on the ground are forced to make life-or-death decisions without any outside support. Imagine being an operator inside an Iranian missile battery, watching your radar screen flicker and then go completely dark for no reason. You try to radio your superior officer for instructions, but all you hear is the sound of static and high-pitched electronic screeching. This is the psychological reality of modern electronic warfare, where the goal is to make the enemy feel completely alone and helpless. In 1991, the coalition forces used this exact method to turn one of the world's most powerful militaries into a disorganized mess. Today, the United States has refined this approach, using more advanced tools that can bypass even the most secure and hardened networks. The Iranian military structure is very top-heavy, meaning that subordinates are rarely encouraged to take the initiative without direct orders from above. This rigid chain of command makes them extremely vulnerable to the kind of rapid and chaotic disruption that American forces excel at. Once the first few command nodes are destroyed, the entire integrated network will likely begin to fracture into thousands of uncoordinated pieces. Without a shared picture of the battlefield, Iranian pilots would find themselves flying blindly into a sky filled with invisible and deadly predators. The sheer speed of a modern American air campaign is specifically designed to overwhelm the cognitive capacity of any human military commander. Every second spent trying to fix a broken communication line is a second where another high-value target is being precisely and effectively destroyed. This is not just a battle of machines, but a battle of systems, where the most resilient and flexible network always wins. We must now look at how the Pentagon plans to initiate this massive collapse, using weapons that never even need to fire. The first wave of a conflict with Iran would likely involve a combination of physical destruction and invisible digital sabotage on every level. These tactics ensure that the enemy is defeated before their missiles can even leave the launch rails to strike at the attacking planes. The blueprint remains the same as it was in the Iraqi desert, but the tools of execution have become far more sophisticated. This fatal flaw of integration is the central mystery that Iranian generals have been trying to solve for over 3 long decades. In the year 1991, the United States military cut off the communications of Iraq by physically bombing their central telephone exchanges and bunkers. Today, in the year 2026, the Pentagon can achieve a far more devastating result using tools that are completely invisible to the eye. Sources indicate that the United States has already carefully pre-positioned advanced cyber weapons deep inside the most sensitive Iranian military computer networks. These digital sleeper agents were placed during the tense months leading up to the current international crisis to be activated when needed. When an attack begins, these cyber weapons would remotely disable sophisticated radar systems and corrupt the critical data used for missile guidance. They could also shut down the entire power grids that support air defense operations, or sever the vital communications between commanders and operators. Iranian air defenders might watch their screens go dark and their radios fill with static before the first physical weapon ever arrives. Beyond the digital realm, the United States has also developed the ADM-160 miniature air launch decoy, which is commonly known as the MALD. Each individual decoy can be programmed to mimic the exact radar signature of much larger and more expensive American combat aircraft. Imagine hundreds of fake F-35 stealth fighters appearing on Iranian radar screens, while the real aircraft approach from completely different directions. Every time an Iranian operator launches $1 million Syad missile at a cheap decoy, they have one less missile for real targets. These massive missiles are far more expensive than the decoys they are chasing, creating a crushing economic and tactical disadvantage for Iran. This swarm technology turns the strength of a dense air defense network into a major weakness by forcing them to waste ammunition. They would be firing blindly into the sky, depleting their limited stockpiles of advanced interceptors, while the real threats remain totally hidden. By the time the actual F-35s arrive at their targets, the Iranian defenses would be exhausted, confused, and almost entirely out of missiles. This combination of cyber disruption and physical decoys creates a chaotic environment where the defender has no good options to choose from. It is a masterpiece of modern military engineering that makes the traditional concept of an impenetrable air defense shield completely and utterly obsolete. As we move forward, the role of these autonomous systems will only grow, further widening the gap between the two opposing forces. This technological superiority is the reason why American military planners remain so confident in their ability to dominate the Iranian airspace. Every line of code and every decoy drone is a silent soldier working to ensure that American pilots can return home safely. Right now, the United States has deployed 10 Navy ships in the region, centered around the powerful USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group. This massive strike group carries over 60 advanced aircraft, including the lethal F-35C Lightning stealth fighters and the Growler electronic warfare planes. These fifth-generation fighters have already proven their worth by intercepting hostile Iranian drones without being detected by any radar system on ground. The Iranians did not even know that the American fighters were in the area until their own surveillance equipment was suddenly destroyed. Admiral Daryl Cottle recently stated that the United States overmatches them significantly, and this capability serves as a very strong deterrent. The air campaign against Iraq was never meant to win the entire war alone, but rather to make a ground war unnecessary. After 38 days of relentless airstrikes, the Iraqi forces were so demoralized and degraded that the ground campaign lasted only hours. Iranian military leaders who threaten to strike American bases are ignoring the historical reality of what happened to Saddam Hussein's large forces. While Iraq fired dozens of missiles at coalition positions, they only managed to kill a very small number of international military personnel. In stark contrast, the coalition forces killed tens of thousands of Iraqi soldiers during that same period using far more primitive technology. This is the simple and brutal math of the Desert Storm blueprint that the current leadership in Tehran must carefully consider. As high-level negotiations continue in Amman, the United States is offering Iran a clear choice between a peaceful deal or total devastation. Only this time, the technology is exponentially more advanced, and the precision of every single strike is infinitely more accurate than before. The technology of the Navy ensures that the American military remains several steps ahead of any adversary in this highly volatile region. If you want to understand more about the incredible technology keeping our Navy ahead, check out our video on the next-generation fighter. We provide deep insights into the future of air dominance and the weapons that will define the battlefields of the next decade. Understanding these complex military dynamics is essential for anyone who follows global security and the evolving nature of modern warfare across oceans. The lessons of history are written in blood, and the United States is prepared to defend its interests with overwhelming force. Every carrier strike group is a floating city of power that represents the ultimate commitment of the American people to global stability. We hope this deep dive into the strategy of Desert Storm has given you a new perspective on the current situation. If you found this analysis helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the Navy Show channel for more expert military content.